Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. With you tuning in on the radio dial here in Mississippi, we welcome you all back to our program. Also, those tuning in online around the world, including our iHeartRadio family, we're glad to have all of you with us as well. We're excited to welcome author D.G. Torrens to our program today. Dawn is an author that has been able to not only garner fans literally around the world. We're going to talk to her not only about that experience, but the first book I had a chance to read by Dawn was actually Forbidden. We'll talk to her about what it's been like for her to not only write novels, but also to share her love of poetry as well. Her newest book is called Abyss, which is thought-provoking poetry and prose. We'll talk about that and let you guys know how you can get your own copy of it. But Dawn, hello to you and welcome to the program.
Good morning, Cyrus. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm so excited to be able to speak with you. You know, I was joking with you earlier about because for our radio audience, they wouldn't know this, but I was having difficulty making sure I called the right number the first time we were supposed to connect, but I'm so glad to have a chance to talk to you today. Dawn, as I said, you've been able to garner fans literally around the world, which is great because you're joining us live today from the UK, so you definitely have an international presence. What has that experience been like for you to hear from your readers?
It's been absolutely phenomenal. I've written quite a wide collection of books, ranging from my autobiography, which is a trilogy. It was my life story, which really set me on the path to where I am now. That was about 8 years ago. And it was the Amelia story, my first book, that I think my readers fell in love with and became dedicated fans of my work. They followed my journey over the last 8 years and seen me grow and thrive and share my experiences with them. So they followed me as a fledgling writer to the professional author that I am today, and it's been an incredible journey. And my fans have been amazing because, like you said, you know, I've managed to reach people and inspire people all over the world, you know, as far down as Australia and as far wide as India. And it's been an absolutely incredible journey. I feel truly blessed.
Yeah. Well, I think the other great thing is, I mean, you know, we talk a lot about it on this program, Dawn, about finding one's voice, and not only, of course, as an author, but just as a creative individual as well. I mean, when did you first discover your voice? When did you know that writing was a gift you'd been given?
Now, this is a story I've told quite often. When I was 9 years old, I discovered my true voice. I started writing poetry first and short stories when I was 9 years old. And I had a very difficult childhood, so it was my way of escape. It was another world I would transport myself to escape my current life at the time. And I immersed myself in words and became obsessed with the whole writing process and how a person could completely relay their emotional state in words on paper without really having to open up yourself to anybody else around you. It was kind of a savior for me. And from there grew this immense love for words, for writing, and for books, because I spent all my time reading. Whatever was lying around, I would, pick up and I'd read it from cover to cover. A lot of autobiographies by other people, like Anne Frank's diary, an incredible story.
Right.
And that book inspired me immensely. So I was a very young child when I really found my voice.
Yeah. And I ask you that question, Dawn, because I think it's so important for our audience to know that one is never too young or too old to be able to discover what it is that they are meant to do. So when you hear from your readers, when you hear from people who discover you online and they respond to your work, does that reinforce for you, Dawn, that you are doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing?
Oh, absolutely. I think, especially with my first book, Amelia's Story especially, I've had so much response the world over from so many people that have contacted me directly through my fan page and have sent me private messages saying how my words inspired them and it encouraged them to fulfill their own dream, and that I made them feel that it was possible to do whatever you want to do as long as you don't allow your path to be deterred by negative forces around you. And with all my other books as well, I think, like I said, my fans have been absolutely phenomenal and they've been great, and I've always allowed myself to be open to contact. So they feel like they're connecting with the girl next door, a friend down the street. You know, when I'm talking to them, they often say it's like having a coffee with a friend, or they've just popped round to a neighbour's. They feel like they know me, and you know, they're truly talking to me and not some sort of media company behind me. But I like to connect with individuals on a one-to-one basis, and give them some time, because they've gone to the trouble of buying my books, reading my books, investing time to follow me on various networks, and I feel it's my duty to give them some of my time. So when they contact me, I always respond within a day, and I always message back.
Right, and I know they appreciate that for sure. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Dawn D.G. Torrens to our program today. We're talking to Dawn not only about her amazing journey as a storyteller, but also what it's been like for her to share her passion of words. And the other thing that really struck me about you, Dawn, that not everyone can say, is that you have a very diverse readership, and it's because of the stories that you write. I mentioned the first thing I read of yours I saw on Facebook, and that was Forbidden. I went over and one-clicked that and enjoyed that story. But you've been able to write such diverse characters and stories, I think, for everyone. Has that always been something you knew you wanted to do?
Oh, absolutely. I think I'm kind of led by the voices in my head. You'll probably hear many writers quoting something similar. You know, I can go to bed, I wake up in the middle of the night, and I've got these little nagging voices in my head, characters developing, write me. And a story is born by, you know, a simple thing can lead to a whole story. Something I view when I'm out walking or sitting in a cafe, you know, something I read on the news quite often has inspired several of my stories. My military romance stories, for instance, are based on current events at that time that I wrote them. So wherever the British Army was during that time, whether it be in, you know, Afghanistan, where my novel Broken Wings was based around, you know, it's always about a soldier who has been sent to Afghanistan. He may have gone missing, or, you know, has gone through some terrible trauma, and the story will be based around that and the love of his life and her waiting back home and how it affects her and her family. So I kind of write these fictional stories, but they're based on kind of real events that are going on around the world.
Right.
So people tend to connect with them for that reason. My military fans, my military romance fans often say to me in their reviews or on my fan page that they feel as if I knew what they were thinking, not just from the soldier's point of view, who have to recover emotionally when they come back home and they're back in their civvies, but also the families left behind struggling on their own while their other halves are away, and they're having to, you know, get through each day never knowing whether their partner's going to return. And I think that was born because, you know, I come from a military family. All my forefathers, my grandfathers were all in World War I and World War II. And my father was in the RAF. And I lost a dear friend, a very close friend, to the war in Afghanistan in 2008, very young, only in his 20s, and that was quite devastating. So I've got quite a big military connection that has allowed me the gift to be able to put my experiences from the family and people that I know around me into my stories on the military front.
Right. And I think the other side of it is that you have not been afraid to share your work, not only in your books, Dawn, but also through social media. I think this is, I tell people when used responsibly and respectfully, the Internet can be an amazing thing. And you are a perfect example.
Amazing.
Yeah, you're a perfect example of using it, to me, the right way. I mean, was it a conscious decision of yours, especially the way you share your poetry on Instagram? Was that a conscious decision of yours to use a platform that way?
Absolutely. I love Instagram. For me, it's such a positive platform, and the response that I get every time I post one of my poems on Instagram is phenomenal, and it also gives you an idea of how those poems are being received. So obviously I've recently published a poetry book, so some of the poems, not all of them obviously, but some of the poems I've sampled on Instagram, and it's given me an idea of what readers think of it. So I've had a lot of response from readers, poetry lovers, the Poetry Society and the whole poetry community who've responded to those poems, who've commented and given me their feedback. So I knew I was on the right track because of the feedback that I was getting, and the love for my poetry was quite phenomenal, and it inspired me to keep going and finish the poetry book that I was already, on this journey with. And it really gave me a lot of confidence for that book, because you never quite know how something's going to be received, especially with poetry, because it's such a personal thing. Yeah. And it delves deep into, your emotions, and a lot of an author's own feelings and experiences are quite often transferred and delivered in their own poetry.
Yeah. I'm so glad you said that. I think that is a perfect segue to the new book, Abyss, Thought-Provoking Poetry and Prose, because, the book is separated into 3 parts, and we're going to let our audience know how they can be able to get it for themselves. But you kind of take us through the journey of the abyss, the fighting of the abyss, and then beyond the abyss. I think what I love about the way that the book unfolds, Dawn, is that, I think we all know what it's like to go through a rough patch, through a darkness in our lives. I think the important thing is for us to do step 2 and 3 to realize that we don't have to stay in it, but we can fight through it and live beyond it. How important has that message been for you in your life when it comes to challenges?
Oh, it's been hugely important. Abyss, like I said with poetry, it's got a lot of my own heart and soul in this poetry book. I've been through so many experiences especially in my younger life. The journey I've had to travel to reach this point in my life, it's second to none, really. It's been an incredible journey, a huge climb. But I always had the vision that I'd look at the mountain, see beyond the climb, and always focus on the snow-tipped top. And that was always my goal in everything I've ever done. And I've been on the floor many times, like a lot of people have. I've had my struggles, and I've been down, and I've been sad, and I've experienced hurt and pain and loss. And, many people, I don't think anybody walks through life and escapes what I call the abyss. Even if it's just for a moment in their time, you will lose someone and feel grief. You will lose a job and feel a bit worthless for a while. You may fail at something, but the key is if you fall down, yes, the falling down hurts, but staying down hurts even more. You have to get back up. And this book is kind of a lot like that. It's taken you through lots of emotions, through anxiety, depression, sadness, love, loss, failure, rejection, every kind of emotional chain that you can be shackled to at some point in your life. So the first part takes you through being swallowed up and enveloped in the abyss, that dark recess of your mind you can't lift yourself from. You don't want to get out of bed. You feel like you can't face the next day, and getting up and breathing is such an effort. And it takes you through all the emotions you feel and you're experiencing while you're going through that time, how it affects you, how you feel low and everything. But then you get to stage 2, part 2, and it's dealing with the abyss, how you're still going through it, but you're on your feet, you've fallen down, but you've got up on your feet, and it's still hard, but you're attempting to step forward, even if you take 2 steps back. Right. But you're not being deterred, you're still being pushed forward and fighting all these little demons that you're struggling with, whatever the emotional state you are in at that time. And then finally, when you get to part 3, it's beyond the abyss, life beyond the abyss. You don't have to stay there. It doesn't have to consume you for the rest of your life. You can have a life beyond sadness, depression, love, loss, grief. You know, life will get better. You'll never forget, because the heart never forgets. It will always remember. But I always say it kind of healing's a bit like a bridge. You cross it. It's kind of like a bridge, an invisible bridge that you cross, and it doesn't forget, but it allows you to cross without tumbling, enabling you to get to the end and continue to live your life, maybe not as it was before, but in a different way and more experienced, because you've been through all these experiences, and through those experiences it's made you wiser, and you've got all this knowledge and you've got this extra gift, and you can share your experiences then with the next person who falls down beside you and say, do you know what, I've been there, and this is what I did. And I know it seems like it's the worst thing in the world right now, but trust me, it will get better. You've just got to work through various stages. You're depressed, allow yourself to be depressed. It's depression's kind of like a reluctant friend, I find. It's going to come, it's going to go, it's going to come, it's going to go. And you kind of learn to respect the darkness, because without darkness, there is no light. You need the darkness to allow the light to shine. And everybody goes through various stages of, downtime in their life. And I think this is what Abyss is all about. It takes you through the deepest recesses of your mind. And we never really fully comprehend the magnitude of the mind. Like people say, we only use 10% of our mind. It's a chasm we can lose ourselves in. It can be good and it can be bad. It can be our greatest friend and it can be our most fearsome enemy. And I've delved very deep into the far corners of my own mind and relived painful moments in my own life. And have drawn on those emotional experiences and that sent me on a journey of descent into the dark corners of my own mind during my past, and I've poured it all out into poetry. But like you said, part 1 and part 2 and part 3, so you've got a process that you go through, and you can come through dark times. But a lot of people, when they're sucked into it, often feel that there's no way out, and there always, always, always is a way out.
There is. Dawn, and I think the other thing is, I, as someone who dealt with depression growing up, when I was, prepping for this segment, I thought about the poem, Don't Accept My Words, because it's very easy for us to look at people and they seem happy, they're smiling, and we don't know the pain that they're going through. We don't know the difficulties that they're going through. And I think that's why, a book like this reminds us of how connected we are, and how, just as we have had our moments, we have to remember other people have theirs, and that should make us more empathetic. Is that part of your hope, that people will read this and realize that there are more things that unite us than separate us?
I hope so. I think with this book, there's something in here that will resonate with every single person. And what I hope that they take away from this is that there is hope, and whatever place you are in the world, in your heart right now, whatever's going on in your head right now, there's always hope, and there's always the next step, and there's always another step. And sometimes it might be just a matter of today, I wake up and I breathe and I get out of bed and I take my first step. That could just be day 1. It doesn't need to be any more than that. Another day, you get up, you get dressed, and you take 2 steps. It depends what situation. If you're grieving, grief is a whole other thing. Depression, like you, Cyrus, in the past I've suffered with depression. I know a great deal about it. I was in a dark place and I was very sad, and especially when I was younger, and it was I have a strange relationship with depression. Everyone has their own way of dealing with it. Writing was mine. It was kind of like my therapy. Some people might go to therapy, weekly sessions, and that wasn't for me. And, you know, writing, it was almost like I'm writing down my thoughts and my feelings. I'm pouring them out in paper, and I'm seeing all my words jumbled up in front of me, and they kind of make sense to me. And it's a really odd thing to say, but through some of my darkest moments have come some of my greatest work.
Right.
You know, it's kind of been a double-edged sword. You know, when I've been down and depressed, you know, I've written some of the most incredible poetry, or wrote an amazing book, because I'm feeling so much at that time that the expression of my words when I execute them on paper, it just flows quite naturally. So something which is also a shackle can also be a gift. So I kind of turned it to my favour, and I learned how to deal with that when I was younger. I don't suffer with depression so much now. I'm in a good place in my life now, but it took a long time to get here. You know, I think when we're younger especially, you do go through all sorts of different situations, and you have to deal with a great amount of pressure. For me, you know, I didn't have the best childhood, so my depression came from my childhood, and it took me, you know, well into my 20s to deal with that and learn from that and turn it into a gift as opposed to a shackle. And like I said, it actually aided my writing at that time. And different periods of life you go through, there is always something good that can come out of it, and you may not see it at the time, but something good always comes out of something bad. Opposites attract. Right. Happy, sad, bright, dark, you know, black, white, and so on. Opposites always attract, and they attract for a reason. And that's kind of how I view everything. And I view this book in the same way. You know, sometimes the eye, one of my quotes is, the eye is all-seeing, but yet we're often blind because we don't see what's in front of our face. And, you know, sometimes you really need to close your eyes and open your ears to hear something.
That's so true.
Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think, again, that is a universal thing. I mean, in coming from someone who's experienced it, I think that's the thing. I also think it goes to another big thing, Don, and that is the fact that, you know, as people are reading poetry, you know, just like when we listen to music, we get different things from it based on our experience. And I think you're exactly right. Absolutely. I think Abyss will reach people where they are. And I think if it's something that they can't personally relate to, I think maybe they may think of someone that they know that this might be able to connect with. And I think that's the beautiful thing about it as well.
I think that's it. We all, even if you're not going through something like that, there are some, you know, positive, uplifting poems at the end of in chapter 3. But I think there, like you said, I think we all know somebody who is going through something. You know, they might be older and they've lost their lifelong partner. They're young and they've just lost a soldier at war. Somebody, you know, might be going through a traumatic breakup, or they're struggling with depression because of a lifelong childhood trauma. There are so many different situations that people can find themselves in, or you know somebody who is going through something, and Abyss is for anybody who has hurt, struggled, or gone through something negative in their life and have felt in a dark place. And I think it will reach people in ways normal conversation doesn't, because I think poetry is unique.
Right.
It's a unique voice that, like music, you know, music can lift people.
Exactly.
But sometimes just normal conversation with someone doesn't. People find it hard to express their feelings and their emotions to another person. We often hide behind a smile. And how are you today? I'm fine, thank you. And inside, your heart's breaking. And I think with poetry, like music, the words, because of the way they're delivered, they tend to deliver straight into your soul or straight into your heart, and you think, wow, somebody finally gets me.
Right.
And that is exactly how I'm feeling. And it kind of has that effect.
And I think that's the big thing, and I think that's what people will definitely take away from your work, Dawn. Really enjoyed this. Again, everyone, Dawn D.G. Torrens has been our guest. Make sure you all are staying connected with her on social media. But her new book is out now. It's called Abyss, Thought-Provoking Poetry and Prose. You can get it through our friends at Amazon.com, so definitely take advantage of that. For you Prime members, of course, you know what that means. That means free shipping for you guys, so definitely take advantage of that. Dawn, and you mentioned Instagram being the best place to reach you. Let our audience know where they can find you there.
Okay, I'm just D.G. Torrens on Instagram. If you look up D.G. Torrens author on Instagram, and it will take you straight to me. I post poems regularly, and often clippets of my chapters from upcoming novels. I'm also in the middle of writing a novel, which is going to be out in the summer. So I post chapters or excerpts of my upcoming novels on Instagram as well. And I often do quite a lot of free giveaways. I give away a book or two a month, to my readers on Facebook. So please join me on Facebook on my fan page, and I'm very connected. If you'd like to message me personally, I always respond within a day and will always reply back, and share your own experiences with me. What have you gone through, and how did you come through it? I would love to hear your stories.
Well, Dawn, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. Really appreciate this, and looking forward to our next conversation together.
Thank you, Cyrus. It's been an absolute pleasure from here in the UK.
Well, the pleasure's definitely all mine, and we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late and missed part of the conversation with Dawn, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay, but after we go off the air, the link is already available through our social media sites. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.